Welcome back. It's Louisa Tannermunson from Feel Good Astrology, and this is the 5th episode of Lessons from Venus. It's part of my 40-day mission to bring something inspiring about Venus to you during this Venus retrograde period of 2023. So in the past few episodes, I've been looking at charts of people who have considered themselves to be lifelong bachelors or bachelorettes. I've also looked at some charts of people who are in their forever love relationships. And I've also started to look at the quality of Venus in charts. So in the last episode, number 4, we were looking at hard aspects to Venus in the birth chart. Now let's have a look at what some of the easy aspects look like and how they impact the chart. So do you have easy aspects to Venus? That's the big question. So in this first chart that you can see here, and this is actually my chart. Now, I used my chart in the previous episode with the hard aspects, and I revealed my, here's the T-square that I've got between Venus and Saturn and Pluto that has given me quite a lot of material over the years, I have to say. But I also have a lot of really kind and soft and generous aspects with Venus. You know, if you think about Venus as being the planet of flow, and the flow of the connection, the flow of the love, the flow of the generosity, the flow of all things good to us. Here, Venus is in a sextile to a conjunction that I've got between Jupiter, Ceres, and the moon in the sign of Pisces, which is a very, very soft aspect, I have to say. You know, the moon in Pisces is pretty soft, you know, very open-hearted, very empathic, very compassionate, and seeking to be compassionate. It's very unboundaried emotion. And then, you know, Jupiter in the sign of Pisces is one of the softer positions for Jupiter. So, you know, we're wanting to expand through emotion. And then Ceres, you know, about how I mother and nurture. So there's a lot of natural kindness coming from here. It's in my 4th house, which is all about creating a home, and I guess all is welcome here. You know, that's how I like to live my life. And so Venus is in a very soft aspect, in a collaborative aspect. And so how I interpret this and how it shows up in my life is that, you know, if I've got a friendly connection with you, if I am feeling in flow, then you naturally have access to me, all of me, the very raw part of me, the very tender part of me, and the very kind and compassionate side. So, you know, where you see the moon in a gentle aspect, where you see Venus in a gentle aspect with the moon, there's gentleness and kindness and generosity. When you see Venus in that kind of relationship with Jupiter, there's a natural feeling of well-being. And so that's a very strong aspect in my chart, even though it's just a sextile. I think it's kind of important. The next thing that I notice, or that you might notice, is Venus is actually in a trine to the descendant. Now, the line's not on there, but at 8 degrees in the sign of Capricorn, and this is at 10 degrees in the sign of Taurus, my Venus is very nicely connected to the descendant with a trine. Venus is also the ruler of the descendant, so this is also pretty beneficial in terms of a chart. And where you have Venus in a nice relationship to the descendant, you know, this is somebody that doesn't really want to fight, that is wanting to be peaceful and collaborative and loving with their partners. The next thing that comes up is Venus sextile the ascendant, which is about being in the right body, being in the right place, being in the right time. You know, it feels like I am living in the right way for me. You know, it's very much about and all that I feel like I can express myself according to who I am. So it's really easy for me to, you know, share my feelings, I guess, and be transparent and comfortable with it. And then I've also got a sextile to Uranus, which brings a bit of excitement. You know, so I do have a natural flow in terms of consciousness, which is very much about Uranus, and I'm quite open to surprises. and the sextile. I do attract quite a few Uranian types into my life. I have a lot of odd friendships and people with odd skill sets and things like that show up again and again. So that's very much there. And it's these are all quite intuitive connections. And there are some micro connections as well. So, for instance, Venus here is also in a semi-sextile to my Mars, a semi-sextile to my Neptune, and also my North Node. So, again, there's a lot more empathy and intuition and instinct. So, this is quite, as you can see, it's quite a loving chart, and Venus is very, very well connected. So, even though I've got this sometimes overwhelming T-square, because the square between Pluto and Venus is actually quite exact. It's not quite there. It's less than half a degree out of a square. It's tight. I've got a lot of softness bringing it in. So let's have a look at another chart. So we've looked at this chart before, actually. This is somebody who's in one of those forever relationships. This is somebody who has found love really, really early on. So this person has got a lovely trine to Saturn. So this is giving a lot of stability with her emotions, and the flow of her relationships has a really nice kind of responsibility. She's very responsible for her partners, I would say. There's a lovely connection there. And also a need for regularity, longevity, and things like that. She's also got Venus trine Neptune, so going the other way. Neptune and Venus are known as love planets, but also sexual planets, and so that's really nice. It creates a lot of, I would say, optimism for relationships, a natural feeling of wanting to merge with the other person, which is really nice. She's also got a sextile to Jupiter, which I've also got and showed you in the last example. So her sextile to Jupiter gives her a feeling of optimism and well-being when she's in that place of love. If you remember, like in the previous episode where I was looking at the squares, this when I was talking about the squares, in fact, she has got a square here, isn't she? If I'm not mistaken. Oh, she's got an opposition and a square to the midheaven. So, when I was talking about the squares in the previous episode, I was saying that, the thing that is squaring Venus is emphasized when you're feeling the flow of love. So for instance, when she's feeling in love and in the flow of love, it does create a bit of a tension for her in her career. So maybe she can't do both. She almost can't manage to do the career and love at the same time. She can't focus on it maybe. And here, with her Venus in opposition to Pluto, there could be that dynamic of, when I'm in love, the feeling of control is coming in an opposition. It feels like there is a need for love to be controlled, which could actually stop her in her flow of love. So these oppositions and squares can be quite deafening in terms of a relationship. It really cuts the natural flowing energy of love. But with these trines and sextiles, when she's in love, and when she's being loving and when she's connected, like her sense of hopefulness is enhancing the love, and her sense of order. Like, when she's in love, she's able to get more in order than she would if she wasn't in love. So love is quite a good thing for her. This is adding stability to her life, and this is adding imagination and romanticism to her life. So what I would say is, when you've got more beneficial aspects to some of the more challenging aspects, what love represents to you is a much kinder thing. It feels a lot more enhancing in terms of your life and how you want to live your life. Let's have a look at another chart. So where's Venus? Okay, so Venus here is in a trine to Mars. And of course, in the next episode, I think I'm going to be looking at the houses that Venus falls in. And, you know, after that, in the signs that Venus falls in. So you get a real good feel for how these aspects take shape. But Venus in a trine to Mars, we've seen it before. There's a real sort of balanced energy between the male and the female. And it feels like the male energy has its place, the female energy within the psyche has its place. And of course, in terms of relationships, it could be quite easy to define the roles, like this is what I do as the woman, this is what you do as the man. Now, that's not necessarily to diss anyone that combines the two or anything like that, but it's more about knowing that there are times to be thrusting and that there are times to be yielding, you know, that there are these quite different personalities within each and every one of us that is expressed in I would say a really nice balance. And then this person also has a trine to Pluto. It's interesting as well because her moon is in the sign of Scorpio, and the two rulers of Scorpio are Pluto and Mars. Pluto and Mars are in a lovely trine, but they're both trine Venus. So I find that quite useful. Now, she does have one tough aspect. Oh, she's got another good one. So she's got this lovely sextile to Neptune. Now, in our lifetime, Neptune and Pluto are always going to be in a sextile. Now, that's not always the way they're expressing themselves, but in our lifetime, they are moving at approximately the same speed, and they are slowly coming out of their sextile. But for now, you know, if you've got a trine to Pluto, you'll have a sextile to Neptune. Pluto and Neptune are always in quite an empathic and receptive relationship to each other at this time in our development of humanity. So yeah, Venus is in a grand trine, and Neptune is helping to form what's known as a kite formation. And this is really nice. You know, kites are very, very helpful. They're showing us how we can flow our energy, but also direct it. You know, with this kite, Neptune and Mars are in opposition to each other. But Venus is one of the ways that the opposition between Mars and Neptune can be expressed. Another way of expressing it is with Pluto. So it's like there's a lot of dynamics, there's a lot of potential here. And of course, Venus, the planet of love, is in this pattern. So all of the loving energy gets, or a lot of her loving flow and her ability to connect is flowing in this beautiful grand trine and also a kite. Now, Venus does have one slightly uncomfortable position, and that's the square with the moon. But like I said, what that moon represents, the moon in Scorpio, which is a very deep moon and quite a troubling moon at times. It's not always an easy moon to understand. But you know, the energy of that moon in Scorpio is also reflected through this Mars and Pluto, which thankfully is in a lovely trine with Venus. So ultimately, this is much more loving, much more flowing, much easier to work through. So when the moon and the emotions, the emotions of the moon and the loving flow are working in their square. Sometimes what I've noticed with these squares between Venus and the sun or Venus and the moon is that there is a bit of a tension, like the love energy is flowing and yet the emotions are a little bit stressed by the flow of love. And so it might be that, especially with the moon in Scorpio, it might be that this person is feeling quite jealous and has moments of jealousy or possession. Even though Venus here is in the sign of Aquarius, it can often show, with these squares, a little bit of jealousy and a difference of positions. So the emotions are saying one thing, but the feeling and the flow is demonstrating something else. So anyway, I hope that has been helpful in understanding how the flow of energy to Venus in your chart can make your relationships easier and also can make them harder. with each of these lessons and the things that I've shared with you, what you've noticed most likely is that most people have got aspects to Venus that are easy and also aspects to Venus that are tricky. And there's a balance. And it's great if you've got slightly easier ones and less difficult ones, but it's not unworkable if you've just got difficult ones. That said, if you were looking at potential partners, it's a tough one. You know, like if you were choosing between two suitors, I would probably go for the easier looking chart as somebody that I might want to spend my time with. But that's mainly because I don't want to have a lot of conflict in my life. When you look at my chart and you see all the easy aspects, I'd be nuts to bring a lot of discord into my life, unless that is what I'm craving for. And I think whatever we're looking for in our chart, we do find it, and we find it in the charts of each other. So anyway, I hope that's helpful in understanding a bit more about how the energy of love and connection can flow in your charts. See you in the next one. Bye for now.